Fire pits were cold, the picnic tables empty. It was like stepping into a ghost town, the kind they show in old westerns. Except instead of tumbleweeds, it was the silence that felt like it might roll right over us, swallowing us whole. Probably just off exploring, Mark said, his voice echoing oddly in the emptiness. He hefted a cooler out of the trunk. You know Sarah, always dragging Emily on some adventure. Sarah, my girlfriend. The thought of her and her little sister wandering around this place, with this unnatural quiet pressing down, made my skin crawl. Let's just get set up, I mumbled, grabbing a tent bag. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. This place, with its unsettling quiet and empty campsites, felt less like a refuge and more like a trap. And I had a sinking suspicion that we were already caught. The sun had dipped below the tree line now, the shadows from the towering redwoods stretching out like long skeletal fingers across the campsite. The air, no longer warmed by the sun, took on a sudden chill, raising goosebumps on my arms. Hey Benny, how about cracking open a cold one? Mark's voice, jarringly normal in this unsettling stillness, cut through the quiet. He held out a can of beer, a wide grin plastered on his face. Sure, I muttered, taking the can but not bothering to open it. The beer, the camping trip, even Mark's usual easy banter, all felt surreal like a faded photograph. The colors leached out, leaving only a pale imitation of reality. We set up camp in a near-religious silence. Mark, usually a chatterbox, seemed content to hum along to a song stuck in his head, oblivious to the growing unease gnawing at my insides. I kept glancing towards the tree line, expecting, hoping, to see Sarah and Emily emerge from the deepening shadows. But the woods remained stubbornly empty, holding their secrets close. The silence, if that were even possible, seemed to deepen, pressing in on me, suffocating me. It was then, with the last sliver of the sun sinking below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of blood orange and bruised purple, that I saw it. A single, solitary crow perched on the wooden sign that marked the entrance to the campground. Its eyes, black and shiny as obsidian, seemed to bore into me, holding a depth of intelligence, of ancient knowing, that sent a chill down my spine. And for the briefest of moments, as our eyes met across the growing darkness, I could have sworn I heard a voice, not with my ears, but somewhere deep inside my head, whispering, "Turn back, while you still can." Then, with a sharp caw that echoed through the stillness, the crow took flight, disappearing into the deepening twilight. Mark, bless his oblivious soul, had built us a bonfire worthy of a homecoming rally. Flames licked at the night, momentarily pushing back the shadows that crowded around our little clearing like curious onlookers. He tossed another log onto the pyre, the flames flaring up and painting his face in a grotesque, flickering mask of orange and shadow. Those girls are probably halfway to Auric by now, he chuckled, taking a swig from his beer. Remember that time? Sarah dragged us all the way to that flea market because she swore she saw vintage a Ouija board on a roadside sign? I managed a weak smile. Sarah, God noi. Her adventurous spirit, usually so endearing, felt reckless, dangerous in this place. She was drawn to the unusual, the unexplained, a moth to a flickering porch light on a moonless night. And Emily, sweet, trusting Emily, would follow her anywhere. Yeah, I said, my voice sounding thin and reedy even to my own ears. But they would have at least texted by now, right? Mark shrugged, the firelight dancing in his eyes. Cell service out here is spotty at best. You know that. Relax, man. They're fine. But the doubt lingered, a knot of anxiety twisting in my gut. The sun was well and truly gone now, swallowed up by the dense canopy of redwoods that surrounded us like silent sentinels. The temperature had plummeted, a bone-chilling cold that seeped into my bones despite the roaring fire. I pulled out my phone again, the screen a beacon of false hope in the encroaching darkness. Still nothing. Maybe we should drive back towards the park entrance, see if we can get a signal, I suggested, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. Mark shook his head, sending his long hair swaying. Nah, I'm starving. Let's eat first, give them a chance to circle back. If they're not here by the time we're done, we'll go looking. Food-eyed. as if I could stomach a single bite with this lead weight of dread settling in my stomach. But I knew better than to argue with Mark on an empty stomach. He was stubborn as an ox, and twice as dense when it came to reading the room, or in this case, the woods. The embers pulsed like a dying heart, each flicker casting grotesque shadows that danced at the edge of my vision. I threw a pine cone into the fire, the flames momentarily driving back the darkness that pressed against the clearing, hungry and patient. "They'll be back," Mark mumbled through a mouthful of beans. Probably found a patch of poison oak and decided to spare us the horror stories. He chuckled, scraping his plate with his plastic spork. But his words, meant to reassure, did little to ease the knot of dread tightening in my chest. Every rustle of leaves, every sigh of the wind through the trees, sounded like whispering voices, their words just beyond comprehension. Mark, oblivious as ever, had broken into his rendition of Hotel California, his voice cracking slightly in the stillness. It should have been funny, his complete lack of awareness, but all I felt was a growing sense of unease. This place, it felt wrong. I excused myself, a flimsy pretense about needing to take a leak, and moved to the edge of the firelight. The trees loomed above, their branches intertwined like skeletal fingers against the night sky. The air was thick with the scent of pine needles and damp earth. And something else, a cloying sweetness that made my stomach turn. That's when I saw it. A shape, indistinct in the darkness, moving between the trees. It was too tall to be a deer, too silent for a bear. I strained my eyes, my heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. The shape moved again, closer this time, and I saw a flash of white like a skeletal hand reaching out from the darkness. My breath caught in my throat, a strangled cry dying on my lips. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through me, chasing away the last vestiges of sleep-deprived logic. This wasn't right. This was not normal. "Mark," I whispered, my voice hoarse with a terror I couldn't disguise. He glanced up from his plate, his forehead creased in annoyance. "What is it, man? You're going to make yourself sick if you don't." He stopped mid-sentence, his gaze following mine to the edge of the woods. The shadows there seemed to deepen, swirling and pulsing like something alive. And then, for the briefest of moments, I saw it again. The white closer now, and two eyes, burning like embers in the darkness, fixed on us. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end, a primal warning screaming through me. We were not alone. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, a pathetic attempt to impose order on the chaos of the woods. My hands trembled, making the beam dance and skitter over the towering trunks of the redwoods, their bark slick with moisture, and something that gleamed unnaturally in the pale light. The smell hit me again, a cloying sweetness that clung to the back of my throat like bile. It was stronger out here, away from the fire and Mark's oblivious humming. I scanned the undergrowth, each fallen branch, each patch of shadow, taking on the shape of the creature I thought I'd seen. Logic told me it was a trick of the light, a figment of my overactive imagination fueled by the oppressive atmosphere of this place. But logic felt like a thin reed in the face of the primal fear that had me in its grip. There, a glint of something white near the base of a tree, half hidden in a tangle of ferns. It was the same white I'd seen before. The white that had sent Mark and me scrambling back towards the firelight like frightened children. I approached cautiously, my flashlight beam fixed on the spot. A piece of cloth, snagged on a branch. My relief was short-lived. As I bent to examine it, I noticed something else. Footprints. Small, too small for an adult, pressed into the damp earth. The toe dug deep, as if whoever had made them had sprung off that foot, launched themselves into the trees. Emily. Panic, cold and sharp, ripped through me. I called out for her, my voice a choked whisper that died in the silence. "Emily? Sarah?" Only the whisper of the wind through the trees answered me. I followed the trail of footprints, my flashlight beam cutting a swath through the undergrowth. They led deeper into the woods, away from the remnants of our fire and Mark's oblivious snoring. Deeper into the silence. The air grew colder, the smell of decay more pronounced. I stumbled over a root, my flashlight beam spinning away into the darkness. When I rightened myself, heart hammering against my ribs, I saw it again. Another glint of white, farther ahead this time. This one was different. It wasn't fabric. It was bone. A bleached human bone, picked clean and gleaming dully in the faint moonlight that filtered through the canopy. The bone was just the beginning. More of them emerged from the undergrowth, like grotesque mushrooms after a rain, scattering the forest floor. A femur here, a rib there, picked clean and bleached white as ivory. I stumbled back, bile rising in my throat, the smell of decay turning my stomach. The wood seemed to press in, the air thick with a palpable dread. This wasn't just a collection of bones. It was a message. Panic threatened to overwhelm me, but a cold primal instinct, the need to find Sarah and Emily, pushed me forward. I scanned the trees, the shadows seeming to writhe and twist, hiding more than they revealed. A low, guttural growl, barely audible at first, rose from the depths of the forest. It wasn't the growl of a bear, or any animal I recognized. It was something other. Something ancient and hungry. The hair on the back of my neck prickled. The growl grew louder, closer, and the woods seemed to hold their breath. The air grew heavy, charged with a strange static, and the trees around me creaked and groaned as if under an invisible weight. Then, through the tangle of branches and shadows, I saw it. It wasn't flesh and blood. Not exactly. More like a walking absence of light. A silhouette carved from the darkness itself. It moved with an unsettling fluidity, limbs impossibly long and thin. Its head cocked to one side as if studying me. And those eyes, burning like hot coals, radiating a cold, malevolent intelligence. The growl ripped from it again, closer now, and the stench of decay intensified, suffocating me. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that this thing, this creature, was the source of the silence, the devourer of sound and light and life itself. Terror, raw and primal, surged through me. I stumbled back, tripping over a root, my flashlight tumbling from my grasp. The beam flickered wildly, casting grotesque shadows that danced and twisted like demons on the forest floor, before finally dying, plunging me into absolute darkness. The creature moved, a silent whisper of motion, and then it was on me. I ran, blindly, desperately scrambling over roots and rocks, my lungs burning, legs screaming for mercy. The creature's growl echoed behind me, a guttural roar that seemed to split the night itself. I didn't dare look back, didn't dare slow down, fueled by pure animal terror. The forest floor was a treacherous maze beneath my feet. Twigs snapped, tore at my clothes. I fell, tasted dirt and pine needles, the metallic tang of the creature heavy in the air, and then I was up again, driven by a fear so profound it numbed me to pain. Where was Mark? Had he outrun this thing? Whatever it was. Or had he become another offering to the hungry silence of this godforsaken place? The thought was a lead weight in my gut, pulling me down, stealing what little breath I had left. My flashlight, useless now, lying back there somewhere, its feeble beam swallowed by the darkness. I cursed myself for venturing so far, for ignoring the warning signs, for bringing Sarah and Emily to this place. The guilt was a fresh wave of nausea. If they were gone, if this thing had taken them too, I couldn't bear it. The thought spurred me onward, a desperate prayer for their safety echoing in my mind. The woods ahead seemed to close in, the darkness impenetrable. I pushed through, my clothes ripped and soaked with sweat, fear a bitter taste in my mouth. I was lost, hopelessly lost, and the creature was still behind me, its heavy breathing getting closer. A low branch smacked against my forehead, momentarily blinding me. I cried out, a sound of pure animal fear, and then I was falling, tumbling down a steep embankment, the forest floor rushing up to meet me. I slammed into the base of a tree, the air knocked out of me. Pain lanced through my ribs, but I couldn't afford to stay down. The creature's growls were closer now, a symphony of hunger and malice. My hand frantically searched the forest floor, grabbing onto something solid. A root. I hauled myself up, my vision swimming, and stumbled forward, driven by adrenaline and blind terror. And then, I saw it. A light. Faint. Flickering. But definitely a light. Hope. Sudden and fierce. surged through me. A house? A ranger station? Maybe. Just maybe. There were people out there. People who could help me. Who could tell me this was all some horrible nightmare. I staggered towards the light, ignoring the stabbing pain in my side, the taste of blood in my mouth. The trees thinned, and I stumbled out into a small clearing. The light was coming from a lantern hanging from a rusted hook on a weathered porch post. It illuminated a rickety cabin, barely more than a shack, its windows dark and lifeless. Silence hung heavy in the air, broken only by the frantic pounding of my heart and the whisper of the wind through the trees. But for the first time since arriving at Whispering Pines, the silence wasn't menacing, wasn't hungry. It was simply empty. I limped towards the cabin, my hand outstretched, hope battling with a growing sense of unease. This place felt off. A patina of wrongness clung to it like moss on a tombstone. As I reached the porch steps, the lantern flickered, casting long, distorted shadows that danced and twisted in the darkness. The metallic scent I'd come to dread, the smell of old blood, and something far more sinister, hit me full force, and the hair on the back of my neck stood on end. The cabin door swung open, revealing a darkness so profound it seemed to suck the light from the lantern. And from that darkness, a voice, cold and raspy, whispered my name, Benjamin. The clearing was an island of flickering light in a sea of darkness. Flames danced in the fire pit, casting grotesque shadows that stretched and writhed, mimicking the terror twisting its icy fingers around my spine. Mark huddled beside me, his face pale and drawn, eyes reflecting the frantic dance of the flames. "We have to get out of here," he whispered, his voice raw with fear. But the woods had already closed in, silent and watchful, their secrets whispered on the wind that carried the metallic tang of decay. I had been a fool to think we could outrun it. This thing that haunted the shadows of Whispering Pines. A low growl, guttural and primal, vibrated through the clearing, the sound seeming to emanate from the very earth itself. The fire sputtered, cowering before the encroaching darkness as the growl grew louder, closer. "There!" Mark gasped, his hand shaking as he pointed towards the trees. A shape, tall and skeletal, emerged from the darkness, its limbs impossibly long and thin, its movements fluid, almost liquid. It glided towards us, a creature born of nightmare, and the air itself seemed to crackle with a malevolent energy. We scrambled back from the firelight, our only defense against the encroaching darkness, our eyes fixated on the approaching horror. It paused at the edge of the clearing, its head cocked to one side as if studying us, its eyes burning like embers in the night. "What is that thing?" Mark choked out, his voice barely a whisper. I shook my head, my throat constricted with terror, words failing me. The stench of decay, of something ancient and profoundly wrong, washed over me, suffocating me. And I knew that this was no ordinary predator. This creature was the embodiment of the silence itself, a devourer of light and sound and life. It moved then, a sudden blur of motion, its long limbs propelling it across the clearing with impossible speed. I barely had time to register its approach before it was upon us, its skeletal hand reaching out, its touch promising oblivion. Mark screamed, a high-pitched shriek that ripped through the night, and then everything dissolved into chaos. The silence returned with a vengeance. It wasn't the peaceful quiet of a sleeping forest, but a suffocating, empty stillness, thick as smoke and twice as bitter. I lay there, sprawled on the cold earth, my ears ringing, my body a canvas of throbbing pain. Took a moment, a shuddering breath, to realize the weight was gone. The weight of fear, of the creature's presence. Mark. I pushed myself up, ignoring the groan of protest from my battered ribs, and saw the remnants of our fire, a scattering of embers winking in the pre-dawn light like malevolent eyes. The clearing was empty, the only sign of Mark's presence his abandoned backpack lying a few feet away. Its contents spilled across the ground like a macabre offering. A low moan escaped my lips, a primal sound of grief and despair. I crawled towards the backpack, my fingers closing around the worn nylon strap on our... Empty. It was empty, just like the campsites, just like this godforsaken forest. The metallic tang lingered in the air, fainter now, but still there. A haunting reminder of the creature's touch. A promise. I knew, with a chilling certainty, that Mark hadn't escaped. Not really. He was gone, swallowed by the silence. His essence consumed by the thing that haunted this place. A wave of dizziness washed over me, the world tilting on its axis. The trees seemed to sway, their branches reaching for me with skeletal fingers. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing the nausea to subside, willing myself to believe this was all a bad dream, a fever dream brought on by exhaustion and fear. But the metallic tang remained, a phantom taste on my tongue, and I knew the truth. Whispering Pines didn't let go. It took what it wanted, when it wanted. And the silence, that oppressive, all-consuming silence, was the price it extracted. I rose to my feet, my legs shaky, my body a symphony of pain. There was no point in staying, no point in searching. The creature had taken what it came for. It had taken Mark, and it had left its mark on me. A brand of terror that would never fade. The highway stretched before me, a ribbon of shimmering asphalt cutting through the heart of the redwood forest. I clutched the steering wheel, knuckles bone white, every muscle in my body tensed, waiting for the other shoe to drop. But the only sound was the low hum of the engine, and the distant whoosh of a logging truck barreling down the highway, its headlights like predatory eyes in the rearview mirror. I'd half expected the thing to follow me out of the woods, to stalk me, a specter at the edge of the road, waiting for its moment. But there was nothing, just the endless highway, and the oppressive silence that had followed me from Whispering Pines. The motel room in Oric was small, smelling faintly of bleach and old cigarettes. I'd showered until the water ran cold, trying to wash the feel of the forest, the stench of decay off my skin. It clung to me still, a phantom odor that set my teeth on edge. The TV flickered, a news report on a missing hiker in Yosemite. I shut it off, the sudden silence deafening. Outside, the neon sign of the motel flickered, casting an eerie green glow across the ceiling. My phone was dead, useless. Mark's, back at the campsite, had met the same fate. No calls, no texts, no way to reach Sarah and Emily. No way to know if they were safe. The thought was a lead weight in my gut, cold and unforgiving. I closed my eyes, tried to conjure Sarah's face, her smile, the way her eyes crinkled at the corners when she laughed. But all I saw were those burning embers, felt the weight of the creature's presence, heard Mark's scream echoing in the vast empty space that was left behind. And then, a sound, a scratching at the window, soft, hesitant. I bolted upright, heart hammering in my chest. The scratching again, more insistent this time. My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment, the motel room, the highway outside, even the horror of Whispering Pines, faded away. All that mattered was that sound, that impossible, hopeful sound. I stumbled towards the window, fumbling for the latch. My fingers closed around the cold metal, and for a heartbeat, I hesitated. What if it wasn't them? What if it was the thing, waiting on the other side, its touch promising oblivion? But the scratching continued, and beneath it, I thought I heard a voice, a whisper carried on the wind. "Dan, it's me, Sarah."